Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Fiercely Spiritual podcast. I'm so glad to have you here today. This episode is a short one, but it's really important that you get to master what we're going through today. So, what's it about? We're talking about life lessons and how to learn from and integrate the lesson, and more importantly, how to learn the lesson before you have to learn the lesson. So what does that mean? Okay, so what are life lessons, first of all? Usually life lessons are things that we have to learn, that we have to integrate. For me, one of my life lessons is patience. It is all about mastering patience, being patient, being compassionate with others, particularly other people. And it's funny because I have that to a degree, and I've obviously been learning that, but then there's times where it just goes out the window. So I'm still learning it, I'm still practicing, and I'm still integrating it. And it's one of my, I don't want to say harder life lessons because then I'm affirming that it's hard, but it's one that I have been working on, and I'm going to put it out there that it will be integrated and that I'm going to be able to integrate it easily, because that's one of the things that I always encourage people to do. When it comes to life lessons, I affirm each day, I say it's my will and intention that this life lesson will be easy, that it will be soft, and that I'll learn from it the first time around and integrate with ease. So what does that mean? Well, basically, when something presents itself to us, we have an opportunity to learn from it and to integrate it. When we don't learn from it and we don't integrate it, we experience it again. It may come in another guise, it may come in another form, but it will be the same lesson. So it's like that job that you left because you hated it, because you didn't like your coworkers or you didn't like the work. And then the new job is fine for a few weeks or even a few months. And then the same thing starts repeating itself. Or the relationship where you left the relationship because it wasn't satisfying, or it wasn't meeting your needs, or it was unfulfilling, or the person cheated on you. And then you enter into a new relationship and it's fine for a few weeks or a few months or even a few years. And then the same patterns start repeating themselves. Maybe that person cheats on you again. Maybe it's unfulfilling again. Maybe something else that's been coming up happens. So why do these things keep happening? It's not because you're stuck. It's not because you're broken. It's because there's a lesson for you to learn and you just haven't integrated it. And what I find is the lesson will come up in a gentle way the first time around. The next time around, the universe really wants to get your attention. So it's going to come up in a little bit, maybe not so gentle way, or in a way that will get your attention, whatever that is. And then if you still don't learn it the next time, it's going to be a little bit more heightened the next time again, until it gets to the point where you're probably thinking, I can't cope with this. This has to stop. And of course it doesn't stop, because you are avoiding the lesson. You're avoiding learning and integrating what that thing is there to teach you. And then we think, oh, well, my life is just awful, or I just have bad luck. Or you think, well, it's just what I deserve. I don't deserve any better. And you start to get down on yourself. And that is so not true. Nobody deserves for bad things to happen in their lives. It's just the universe's way of getting your attention. And what I found is often with clients who come to me who may have life-threatening illnesses, I'll be doing a healing with them and I'll find that the information coming through from the angels, or the information coming up, is that this is a fantastic opportunity for this person. This person can finally learn the thing that they're meant to be learning and move on, so that they don't have to keep going through it again and again and again. So the way in which to learn and integrate life lessons, the way to stop going through the same experience over and over and over, is to be proactive in bringing awareness to the lesson and also to the gift within the lesson, so that we can learn and move on. So how do you do that? Well, I'm going to give you a few steps. First of all, identify a challenge, identify something that's come up with maybe a problem or an issue that you've been through in your past. It can be the recent past, it could be the past day or the past week, or it could be something in the distant past. So first of all, identify that thing. It might be something that has hounded you for years. Just look at what that thing is. Number two, write out all the ways in which this has benefited you. So if it is the relationship and you're thinking, how can this have possibly benefited me? It only brought me heartache and grief. I can't see any benefit to it. There's always a benefit. Maybe you became more compassionate. Maybe you became more tolerant from it. Maybe you learned forgiveness, to forgive that person for whatever it was they might have done. Maybe you learned unconditional love. Maybe you learned just to accept yourself without somebody else having to be there to make you feel whole. Maybe you learned to accept yourself as you are and not having to have another person to validate you. So whatever the lessons are, whatever you learned from it, whatever way it benefited you, write all of those down, write as many as possible, list them all out. And then number three, ask yourself, what was the key lesson? So look at your list of things that you've written out, all the benefits that came out of it, the experience. And then ask yourself, what was the key lesson? And there'll be something that'll stand out. It'll be one thing. There may be a couple of things, and there might be a couple of elements to this. There might be more than one lesson that's going on here. But usually there's one thing that's a key thing that's coming up. So identify that. And then ask yourself, what was the gift or the opportunity within that? So if you have been through a relationship where you felt neglected, or you didn't feel loved, or you didn't feel needed, then maybe you grew to love yourself a little bit more. Maybe you grew to love yourself in a way that you knew that that love would always be there for you, and that you don't need other people to validate that within you, that you have everything you need within you. And then when you come to the next relationship, you are filled with so much self-love that spills over into the relationship, and you're not drawing on this new partner for love to fill you up. You're not pulling from them something that you don't have. You are letting that love spill out from you and to fill up your relationship. And it's a mutual thing where you're both receiving from each other rather than trying to take. So that relationship is beautiful. That relationship is giving, it's loving, it's kind, it's pure. It's not a needy relationship. So the gift is that gift of self-love to yourself. So maybe there's some other gift that you learned, but you have to identify that gift or that opportunity that came out of the situation. And then finally, and this is a really important part, when you've identified that, if it is that you learned how to love yourself fully so that that could spill over into not just romantic relationships, but all the relationships in your life, then ask yourself, how can I use this to help others? And this is the really important part, because when you use your challenges that you've overcome, when you use the problems that you've been through and that you've solved, when you use that to help others, then you step into that role of being fulfilled, of helping, of serving, which brings you back so much more fulfillment and makes your life so much more enjoyable, so much more full. And that's really just a blessing in itself. So how can I use this to help others? Maybe it's writing that book about your experience. Maybe it's a blog post where you share it, or an article, or a vlog, or maybe it's just by talking to your best friend and helping them in some way. It can be big or small, but sharing what you've learned is key, because when you can teach others what you have learned, then you fully integrate the lesson, and that's when you can move on from it. And when you've integrated the lesson, that's when the roller coaster of relationship after relationship after relationship stops, because you've finally learned, and you don't need to keep learning that. So you don't need to keep going from relationship to relationship, or from job to job, or from experiencing the same illness over and over and over, or whatever it is that's coming up in your reality. So when you have mastered this process, it can then be used on a day-to-day basis or a minute-by-minute basis. So we're looking at it from the perspective of, well, what in the past happened? What have I been through that I can now learn from and integrate so I don't have to keep going through it again? But maybe you can then start applying it when you're used to doing this on a day-to-day basis. So when a challenge comes up, when you're feeling challenged, when you're feeling frustrated, when you're feeling that you're suffering, just stopping and asking yourself these questions. How is this benefiting me? What is the lesson in this? What's the gift and the opportunity in this? And how can I use this to help others? And when you start asking yourself those questions, then your life starts to open up and you don't have to keep going through the same lessons over and over and over. So I hope this has helped you. I hope you can integrate this and use this in your life, because if you're watching, then it's definitely something that you need to do, that you need to use. You're here for a reason. So make sure to make the time to sit down and to go through this process and to start freeing yourself from the cycle of having to learn the same thing over and over and not integrating it and repeating the cycle, so that you can free yourself. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I will see you in the next episode.